My name is Ash-Lee Woodard Henderson. My homies call me Ash, which you're free to do. And I use she, her pronouns are really any said respectfully. And yeah, I am a Black, queer, Southern supremacist who grew up in the working class and have done movement work for the last couple of decades. And my paid gig, my W-2 work is that I'm the first Black woman to serve at an executive director capacity with Alan Maxfield Steel at the Highlander Research and Education Center. So I get to throw down with this dope crew of folks that are, basically building out the next generation of movement schools that are training freedom fighters how to do their work successfully and change the material conditions of their people for themselves. So that's a little bit about it.
Fantastic. That's amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
It's dope. It's dope.
Yeah, you got that up quite nicely. I'm like, I play notes. I play musical notes.
That's important.
Yeah, man, it's such a pleasure to connect with you. I've been excited about your organization and looking forward to having this little one-on-one time for a while. So it's thrilling. Yeah, I'm a songwriter. I'm a musician, and I play mostly rock and roll. But I grew up with jazz and hip hop, and branched out to every genre that I can get my hands on, basically. But yeah, so I'm somebody who listens to the world around me and tries to communicate what's happening, and just to be a voice, in the midst of the chaos, usually.
Yeah, and you do it well. You do it well. How are you feeling in this moment?
I sing a lot about hope, and a lot about looking towards the future and where we want to be as a people. One of the reasons that I write that so much is because I really need it. I need the hope. It's something that it's a resource for me because it's hard, man. I don't know what's happening. I played a show recently, and I said, things are crazy. They've gotten crazier, and I'm tired of saying that.
Yeah,
I've been saying that for years.
Yep.
It's so frustrating. I don't know if progress is the kind of thing that you ever see in the moment. But it's it's hard to see it right now, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess in short, I'm making an effort not to be discouraged, and motivated to encourage other people to be motivated as well. That's kind of where I am. But how about yourself? How are you feeling in this moment?
You named it. The thing I feel like I most consistently say these days is nobody's okay. I remember the days where we thought George W. Bush was the worst it would get,
Yeah.
And just how different I would have, who I needed to be then to keep this from happening now. Right. And so, I think I feel a lot of things. I feel of course people are not okay. We went through 4 years of just not good politics, regardless of the political party, right? We went through COVID, and, I work in the South. And so I live in a state, and I work with people that live in states where governors didn't expand Medicaid. So lots of people died, where I live.
Yeah.
In Tennessee, the percentage of Black COVID deaths is higher than the percentage of Black people in the state.
Wow.
It's hard to even map out in my brain how many people aren't here anymore. And, I think I'm sitting with what it means to, feel like it's the last days, well, also, here, to your point, hearing folks like Mariame Kaba in my head saying that hope is a discipline, right? It's not just a luxury or a thing that we do to preach people up and make them just feel good about themselves, though there's a time and a place for that too. But that it's without a vision, our people will perish. And if we don't believe that our people have what they need to be able to get us to that vision of everybody having what they need so we don't harm each other and we like learn how to share again, like stuff we teach
Yeah.
kids. Like if we can't do those basic
Yeah.
things, then I don't know what I would do. So I as much as I feel scared and anxious and pissed off and like all the yuck stuff, I also feel really, really lucky, at least blessed at most, maybe, to feel like I'm with a crew of people that is figuring out together what we ought to be doing about the things that are making me feel so bad.
Like there's a moment for me, at least in the '90s, where I kind of believe. I started to believe all the this stuff's in your head,
Yep.
And yeah, so like just to see now where it's like, whoa, like okay, it's clearly not in my head.
Yep.
And also like we like this is a moment where like we have to be at least as empowered as the people felt in the '60s. Like we have to rise to that level, to that goal.
One foot in front of the other towards this freedom thing, this justice for all thing that we all keep saying that we want so much. And I think, that's what, if nothing else in 2020, I feel like I learned that there's so many more of us that want to do that. There's like so many people who are like channeling their rage and frustration and fear and sadness into not just feeling defeated, but feeling like, we got to be able to do better than this. We've got to do better.
Sure.
And that's what's, that and really good music, is an art and culture and relationship, and the way that those things sort of work together, I think is probably what's keeping a lot of us afloat right now, for sure. And you're a part of that. So it's an honor to get to meet you and to spend some time with you and to, answer these questions together. And it's a virtually sacred opportunity, and I'm very grateful for it.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Well said. Yeah, likewise.
Let's shift to BLM. So you've now written this song, and from my understanding, you've been working on it for quite some time. What was your inspiration for creating this gift that you're about to give to the people?
Yeah, in 2020, things were, we had the pandemic, everything shut down, and I think people were a little bit more in tune with what was happening. Like the news was a little bit more dialed into things that were, outside of the pandemic, and like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Jacob Blake. I mean, like all these people were hitting the news, and it was overwhelming for a lot of people, And I had a lot of friends that were reaching out to me, that were like, a lot of my Caucasian friends were like, hey, like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, how are you feeling? And I appreciated that, but at the same time, it was like this this has been reality for like as long as you've known me. This isn't new, like, and having to explain to people that like like that occasionally that weird thing that I'll occasionally do, like, that's why, like, I don't know. One thing that keeps coming back to me really, really, really powerfully is just, like the conversation that I had with my dad, like the conversation, like, and, my dad put it to me in a way that wouldn't, he didn't want me to be afraid, but he wanted me to be alive. Right. So, so anyway, like, so all this stuff was happening. And it was like, just the reality of like this is just how it's always been. This isn't a new situation. Black Lives Matter kind of like popped up, and quickly became like kind of like a political target. But the sentiment of it was true, and I appreciated the sentiment. I don't have any affiliations with the organization, but I was trying to figure out a way to convey this to the people around me in a way that would be effective, and the bottom line was like, listen, like this is happening to people that are born like me. Yeah, that's it. Like me.
Your friend, the one right here.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, like those letters in themselves, going back to like you said, like the Black liberation movement, and there's just something really powerful about I don't know, like that grouping of letters in themselves, and I really felt like I need to break this down and explain. So like the song itself is it's just a reflection of like what I imagined George Floyd would be feeling in those last moments, and then I thought about Breonna Taylor and what the feeling would have been in the room at the time. Yeah. And I just wanted to be able to convey that, and again, like reiterate, like these people were born like me. This is what's happening to people born like me. But also, to be encouraged and to stand up. Like this is the time when we need to be encouraged. We need to represent, and we need to be strong. So that's kind of like the impetus of how the song came together.
It's so important, and I think to your point, I think something shifted in the conditions when COVID hit, for sure, that opened up people's availabilities and maybe the press's capacity to pay attention to what folks I think on the ground were making possible, and like forcing people to confront. And what a gift it is to both have the kind of political education that's going to come from this song, but also the shared experience and the head nod to other folks. I don't know that I'd ever, pre-hearing even the snippet that I got to hear, that I had framed how I facilitate with people, particularly in multiracial spaces, or when I'm speaking in any given sort of condition, and be like, like I'm talking about my stuff. This is part of why you can connect with me, is because it's my experience. It could have been me easily.
Absolutely.
Could have been me. Yeah. And if you're moved by what I said in general, then you should care just as much about George, even if he was selling singles out, in front of the gas station. You care about Breonna, even if her boyfriend was a thug. Who cares? Like, you don't know that, but even if he was, that's my people, right? That's I know them. That's my folks. Yeah. And so I think there's just something really powerful to that, and like you said, to the before, during, and after of BLM, as in Black Lives Matter, right? That this actually is a long-standing legacy of not only resistance, but even more around like cultivating the joy of Black people and the opportunities and accessibility of the actual practice of democracy and freedom and justice and liberation for Black people. And what I know and what data shows is that when Black people do good, everybody wins, right? Like everybody wins, sometimes disproportionately so. And so what an opportunity to invite, folks with good musical taste to think about this. I think it's something that you certainly didn't have to do, and so all of us, I'm sure, especially folks once they get to hear it, are going to be super full of gratitude. I know that me and the Highlander crew certainly are. Remember with me, 26 billion souls rising, united in solidarity, screaming no justice, no peace, from the depths of their righteous rage. Has there been enough cumulative Black deaths to move you to action now? Join us.
I want to talk about. I want to hear your feedback in terms of the words that you decided to use for the interlude. I like to touch on that. I'm really curious about how.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I was mad nervous. I was mad nervous, and it's not because like in a weird fake humility, disparaging way. I was just like, oh, this feels important. It feels important both because of how seriously I know you take your craft, and how personal BLM is to you, both in an artistic way, but also like who you are, like you said, kind of way. And so I wanted to take it seriously, and in true Gemini fashion, was overthinking it. And I was on a plane headed to Colorado, where I was going to record later that afternoon. and I just started playing the track. Like the plane took off and I just started playing the track and listening to the track and playing the track and listening to the track. And just like, instead of trying to preempt what I was going to say, I just listened to the music and I listened to what I was hearing of the lyrics. And the next thing I knew, I was in the notes app on my phone, just hammering it out. And then I spent, the rest of the flight just seeing if it fit, in the amount of time that I knew we had to get it in. And it just came. And I think, it feels so true to artistic, any kind of modality, but artistic creation. It was like, instead of trying to force or fake a performance of what it should have been, that when I listened to what you were saying and thought about what I'd been through and seen, it was obvious what should be said. It felt pretty obvious what should be said. It just came really quickly. But even once I had it, that didn't make it easy, right? Like I got it, I got into the studio and was like, I remember just talking. I was like, if I just keep them talking, maybe we'll run out of time, right? Real about doing it. There's like 2 other people, they're the homies, they're like my fam. But I'm mad nervous. And I remember Carrie Knott turned around and looked at me and said, Ash-Lee, enough. Get up and go get on the mic. And so I got up and we did a few takes and they said it was good. And I'm in my head, like, the white supremacist critic in my head is like, that wasn't great. We should do it again. That wasn't perfect. I've got to do it again. And they were like, no, for real. We think we got it. And then I saw the emails flying and people, seemed receptive to it. So I can't imagine that. I mean, I guess in some ways I can, but to the scale of eyes on you, I can't even imagine how stressful sometimes that has to be to like constantly be under the eye of folks thinking about it. But or that have something to say about what you're creating from your own lived experiences. But truly, the harder I tried to perform what I thought was perfect, the harder it was to get it to happen. And then when I just like, my mom is a member of the original Black Panther Party. And so, I grew up in a movement fan. So when I thought about what I had learned from getting to grow up around, some of the baddest activists in the country, and then coming into organizing and activism in my own way as a young person, sort of, self-directing what I wanted to do or what I was passionate about, what was keeping me up at night. And I reflected on that and what I had seen since me and my friends started the movement for Black Lives back in 2014. And, the more I just thought about, what we had sacrificed, post Trayvon and then post Mike Brown and then post Sandra Bland, Breonna and George with the uprisings and so many other names that folks would never know. Walter Scott that nobody talks about anymore in South Carolina, and Black trans women and trans and gender nonconforming people that had been attacked. It was like, oh yeah, like what would I say if I was just talking to my folks about what we were living, and what we had experienced and what we deserve and what we want for each other, and what does it mean to say something like that, so intimate like that, to people that it's not just going to be other Black people that listen and are impacted by this song. So like, what would I say to folks that want to get right too, right? Like what is it important? What's important for my, I have a real broad definition of my folks, but if I was thinking in those sort of demographic segments, what do our people need, and what do, like in terms of Black people, but even in the broader my people, what do white people of goodwill or non-Black people of color need to hear to feel invited to come and get down? I think that's what's big when we look at the data about who's joining white supremacist organizations. People are saying that the reason that they join is because they're looking for a place to belong.
Sure.
And
it's basic human
that's
nature.
it. It's basic human nature. It's not because they like. It's at least the thing they're saying first isn't, I'm affiliated with this political party, or
Mm-hmm.
I believe in this public policy, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I love David Duke or whatever, right? Like, no, it's not
Right.
that. What they're saying is like, I was trying to find people that thought that I should be where they was at, you know, like
Yeah,
very
that's it.
simple,
Yeah. It took
simple.
me
And
in.
so,
That's it. Yeah.
you know, what does it look like? I don't think everybody can do that kind of work, nor should they have to. But I think folks like you and me and so many others that do bridge communities,
Mm-hmm.
that do use whatever gifts we've got, whether they're artistic or not, and you know, complex community relationships with folks that, you know, systems as they are set up say shouldn't kick it with each other.
Right.
What did they need to hear too? And I think when I got out of my own way and trying to perform what I thought they needed to hear and just said what I was experiencing, it came. But that was not my first stop. My first, they took a minute to get to that. Thank God for that flight, because I was like, I don't know what I'm about to do.
Well, it sounds like a beautiful process that you went through with it. I mean, like at the end of the day, it's I don't sweat it in terms of like, you know, critical response too much. For me, it always boils down to like, I just got to be honest about where I'm at and how I'm feeling. And like, it sounds like that's, you know, that was your resolve ultimately.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's
sure.
The most powerful place to come from. You know, you kind of like spoke about this a little bit, but the sentiment of like Born Like Me, again, like, you know, was a way for me to be able to connect, you know, the broader masses, really, you know, because it's, you know, for a lot of people that are in my circle or my sphere, whatever their ethnic background is, or you know, gendered background, or whatever their background is, we're in the same, you know, like we're together, like we're
right.
you know, these are my friends, these are my people, and they identify with me, right?
Yep.
So my way of bringing them in was to say like, okay, like you know, we're here, right? Like we're here.
Yep.
Heads up, so is this person. Right?
That's right.
Heads up, so all these other people in the news, they were born like me. So if we're connected, if we're on the same page, if we're feeling each other,
Yep.
These people were born like me.
Yeah.
So
let me introduce you to the rest of the people. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, so we all need to feel it, you know.
That's right.
That's kind of the whole thing. Like, if you think that you were born like me, cool, but also recognize that these people were born like me, and they're suffering consequences that you're not suffering, you know, just by the nature of the color of their skin, you know, or because of their identity, you know, you know, because of the way they look in the mirror.
No, it's so, I feel like that's such an important point, Jake, because I think what, like you said earlier too, like when folks are thinking about kind of the origins of Black Lives Matter as a concept that was popularized in 2012 or 2012. People were like, oh, you know, you're othering people, you know, like you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't other people, like all lives matter.
Right.
Like, right. Okay. Like I get it.
Yeah. No one's got a problem with that.
No one's got a problem with that. Nobody's saying all lives don't matter.
Right.
In a particular time, place, and condition, we're saying that we're putting our focus here because there's a particular pain point here.
Right.
And I think Born Like Me, like BLM does that too. The song does that too, in that sort of invitation, which is really a vulnerable thing to do, Jake. Like to be like, okay, because we could have just coasted on this we cool, we friends, you know, topical relationship stuff. And a lot of us do that a lot, you know, just for the sake of keeping the peace. But to invite folks in to also then see really intimately who else you care about and be invited and trusted enough in your relationship with them to be like, no, but like also like I am them and they are me. And if you are me, then they are you too is like, you know, for some people, a bridge that they are very, very scared to cross, you know, so I literally all the time, especially with, you know, white colleagues or any sort of, you know, community of folks that have family members that actively practice, you know, things like, you know, anti-Black racism, but also like to your point, homophobia or transphobia or, you know, patriarchy, whatever the thing is, or you know, classist stuff.
Peoplephobia.
People phobia. People phobia. I'm stealing that. Yeah, people phobia. Like, whatever the conditions, they're like, well,
Yeah.
but that's like my grandmama or my uncle, and like, I'm just not trying to fight them, and it's like, well, but you're assuming that they can't be transformed, and I think this song is an invitation to be transformed, to get over whatever people phobia we have, but in a particular context that was connected to the murder of George Floyd. And I think that is a very vulnerable and intimate invitation that I think is what unlocked it for me. Like, seriously, I think if I had just tried to write something in the abstract that wasn't, after having heard the musicality of the song, one, and the lyrics that were in the section, I don't know, like, I think I responded to your invitation is what got the piece written. If I'm being honest, I don't know that I would have gotten there if I had just tried to write post the murder of George Floyd. And I know that because I did write after, I was doing interviews left and right. I was publishing stuff left and right. But nothing came out the way that it did after I heard the song. So I feel excited about other people, regardless of their background, also getting to really receive that invitation. And what I experienced was that, like, once I had received the invitation, I had a choice to make. Like, I was either gonna respond in kind, or I was gonna make a choice to not do it, or I was gonna make a choice to prioritize performance over genuine relational connection and stuff. And so I think, like, there's I feel so excited about the impact, regardless of the scale. Even though I think the scale is going to be huge, even if it was just a few people that were transformed in proximity to this song, I would count it as victory. And I know that I'm one in the number.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how it got written. It was like herky jerky, but once I got out of my own way and was open to actually hearing what you were putting down, it was like, it literally like 10 minutes on a flight.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful. I mean, like, that's the hope, that people make a connection, that people, recognize the invitation and come in, man. That's that we are one people at the end of the day, we need to continue our efforts to silence the objectors to that. Share with me more about, like, what you're doing with the Highlander Center. I mean, one of the things I love about Highlander is its history and educating people to organize, especially, right? I mean, like, that in itself is so important and imperative to be, as a continued education. People have lost touch with what that means over time, but Highlander's been doing such a fantastic job of that for forever.
I mean, being at Highlander is like living in the past, present, and future all at the same time, often, because our programs are pulling from long legacies of this kind of work, this world-saving, world-changing work, but is also consistently dreaming about a future that's even better than what we are predicting for now, right? And so, what does it look like in a day? A day in the life of the Highlander Center is busy, especially right now. We're continuing to build up the next generational cohort of Southern freedom fighters in Appalachia and the Deep South. And they do that through a multitude of programs. It is not impossible to be a 6-year-old in a Highlander program. All the way through, some of our movement elders continuing to be in our programs, coming to our political education opportunities, trainings, leadership development workshops, members of our fellowships. We have several fellowships that are moving right now. So we do youth work, we do intergenerational work, and we do work to accompany and support movements, right? We don't help people because it's not a charity. We partner with communities and we follow their leadership. I think the thing that is if there's a secret in the sauce of how you can become a 90-year-old organization like we will do this year, it is that we really truly believe that the most marginalized and targeted community members in this country, in the world, actually really do have everything that they need with the right resources to be able to change their material conditions for the better with some of the best solutions. We really do believe that. It's not like just like a tagline in our mission. We really believe that.
Yeah.
And we believe that if we as an organization can be a catalyst, an agitator, and a resource provider to increase their capacity to do it, that they'll win, to be excellent in our methodologies, like popular education, like participatory action research, like, cultural organizing, which is like so significant to Highlander's legacy, and being connected to a place and land, among others. We think if people know how to do that, they'll win. If people remember, because it's not even that they don't necessarily know how to do it, it's that they don't have language around it as a methodology, as a tool that they're using to change their material conditions. So we're helping to remind people of the tools that have always been their people's ways of changing their own material conditions. I think the bigger thing is that we're putting them into relationship with other folks that are also struggling. And so they're able to learn from each other, right? They're both experiences and just over, breaking bread together. So there's a lot that's going on in terms of our programs. Our Seeds of Fire program, again, is for young people that are like teenagers to college age. We have a children's justice camp that is actually kicking off, I think, this week, that is with young people that are like 6 to 12. They are the rowdiest of the rowdy movement people. I don't care what anybody says. None of us are as radical as these young people. Not one of us. I don't care how much Marx you've read. I don't care if you come from Stokely Carmichael. You are not as radical as these girls. They've marched on my office. Oh yeah, they don't play. Even when they don't have their demands right, they know they're ready to fight. They want justice. Whatever they need. And then, we have a really incredible cultural organizer, Janae Taylor, who is doing incredible work. And then, Makani Timba often talks about us as a movement trust. We have 90 years worth of record of historic movements all over the South, all over the US, and all over the world. And so we have a library, archive, bookstore on site, and papers and other archives across the country. I think as far as away as Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, that hold our papers that, have, notes from Septima Clark about freedom schools, that have, stories about John Lewis's first integrated mill, that, talk about not only Rosa Parks as someone who came and participated in a workshop at Highlander to train, but also that Rosa Parks was on our board of directors and what it looked like to actually be a steward of the organization's governance for years and years and years. Ms. Parks was so much more than just an activist. She was helping build movement governance and infrastructure, and Highlander wouldn't exist without her in the way that it does right now. So honoring that legacy, remembering how to do this work together. And I think the last thing that I would say that Highlander is still committed to, other than moving as much money to grassroots organizations as we possibly can, not even just through us and our relationship to a really incredible outfit called the Southern Power Fund, but also really telling funders, you need to be giving money directly to the grassroots, is that we're really, really intentional about thinking about the dangerous and forbidden conversations that need to be happening right now if we're really going to build the kind of might that we need to fight against the really scary conditions that we're facing and that we're in right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that, especially just demographically, like where you guys are. And the crazy gerrymandering that's being allowed to happen blatantly, in a way that's maybe more blatant than it's ever happened.
That's right.
And the Supreme Court, looking at giving rights to states to, this is a, I can't imagine the conversations that are happening there right now.
Yeah, I mean, even just with our, I imagine, I don't know exactly who did it, but in 2019, white supremacists burned my administrative offices down. Highlander's administrative offices down, and I imagine that's not just because they're mean people. I imagine that it was because of our legacy, but also really specifically because of our contemporary work, right? That we're connected to the movement for Black lives, that we support queer folks, that we work with undocumented people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like all the things, we believe that regardless of your spiritual practice, you should have space. Regardless of what language you can or cannot speak, you deserve to have voice in a space, right? Like all of these things. And that's the antithesis of what these people believe. And so, I think that what we thought was dangerous and forbidden is actually really expansive in a way that's really scary right now. And we're committed to continuing to do that, even under the threat of that white supremacist violence, and even under the consequences of the total abandonment of our people by the state, but even more scary, the really intentional, insidious surveillance and oppression that can come from the state, which, is something that Highlander is not new to either. The state of Tennessee tried to have us shut down back in the 60s. It's how we ended up moving from our original home to Knoxville, in Grundy County, to Knoxville, and then from Knoxville to where we are now, where we've been the longest. So, we're willing to continue to take what shouldn't be a risk, but is a risk, to keep bringing people together across their differences to figure shit out. That's what, if people wanted to know what Highlander does in a sentence, we've been bringing people together to figure shit out since 1932.
Yeah. So we're releasing the song in Black August, and I wanted to talk to you and just ask you about like what is Black August, and what does it commemorate? To help to convey like why it's significant.
So excited that the song is coming out in August, and Black August is something that I learned about through the Malcolm X grassroots movement. Really incredible organization that's been doing work toward the liberation of Black people for probably longer than I've been alive, I bet. But they taught me that Black August is an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is to commemorate folks who have, been impacted by political imprisonment because of their connection to Black liberation movement struggles, right? Like we still have folks that are in jail simply because they got framed up on things that they likely did not do, just because the state was threatened by the fact that Black people were getting empowered. And so thinking about folks like Matula Shakur, who is dying, and who is someone that we have been fighting to be released for a very, very long time, and so many other political prisoners that have sacrificed so that I can get the basic luxuries that I get, the privileges that I get because of their sacrifices. So it's partly an attempt to raise up the struggle for the freedom of our political prisoners. It's partly an opportunity to get really serious about our practice, collective and individual practice as Black people that believe in liberation. So some people use Black August. It's different, but like in a similar way to many sort of holy days where people fast and train and recommit to what it is required of us if we actually want to see liberation in our lifetime. So some people fast, some people like exercise more regularly, right? It's almost like a New Year's in that way, is it's an opportunity for you to recommit to a solid practice. And then there's also my most consistent practice in Black August, if I'm being real honest, is that it's a season where many movement practitioners across the U.S. Practice some creative interventions, particularly around writing haikus. And so typically there's an organization called Spirit House out of Durham, North Carolina, that's been working. I think they started this, but have been working with Malcolm X grassroots movement. So every Black August, starting from August 1st, folks will go to social media and write Black August haikus. Nice. It's a way to collectively meditate on a topic that's about what it is to be Black in this contemporary moment, or in relationship to Blackness over the longevity of our people being on this planet. And to then collectively share what we think we're learning through a creative practice, which is always really like renewing for me. So there's multiple ways to get down with Black August, but if you Google search it and look up Malcolm X grassroots movement, you will find all the history of Black August. You will find many opportunities and invitations, particularly if you are a Black person, to participate. And if you are not a Black person, still, you should know this history because it's connected to your history too. So you should know about it. You should fight for these political prisoners. You should look out for what non-Black folks are doing during Black August and get down with it.
It's interesting, just the timeline of it, of the whole thing, because I'm pretty positive that the first notes that I put together for the song were in August 2020. Like that's when I sat down at
There
this
is something
piano and
wild
started
about
putting this
that
thing
month for
together.
Black people. I don't feel surprised. Part of what I didn't say is that it's also when, some major assassinations of Black people have occurred.
Mm-hmm.
When some of the movement uprisings across our diaspora have really rooted and taken shape or become a global phenomenon. So yeah, there's something sacred about Black August in that it's it's a month that is so heavily concentrated with some of the highest ebbs in our movements, but also some of the most devastating things that have caused the movements to need to exist in the first place, which is, I think why it's not just February, right? It's not June or May. It's August because of the concentration of how many of those dates, those anniversary dates, are located in the month of August.
Mm-hmm.
So of course you wrote it in August, and of course it's coming out in August. That just feels so divinely right. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. It's powerful. That's great.
So I know that Allison Russell is the bomb diggity, and out here doing really incredible work. And I know she's also a good friend of yours, and I've had the pleasure to get to meet her, and excited about the ways that Highlander's looking forward to like hosting her and like working with her. Tell me more about her involvement in this track.
Man, I got turned on to Allison Russell through Our Native Daughters. Like what a phenomenal group. I don't remember when it was I got like hooked onto that record. But just like so many incredible songs. And like the whole concept behind it, it was really powerful. And I live in Canada now. I moved to Montreal in 2017. So over time, like getting into that music, and then learning that like Allison's actually from here originally, and then like learning more about her story, and all that being said, and then her voice is just insane. You're talking about like feeling insecure about a performance. Like I was like, I don't know if I need to be on this. Maybe just let her do the thing. She's got such a powerful voice and a powerful soul, and I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled that she's on board with us for this, and extending her voice through this music, to make some change happen. It's pretty exciting.
Shout out to Allison Russell. She is certainly one of the best humans. She's just good. She's sweet. She's just nice. She's just good people, which is why it wasn't shocking to me that the two of you know each other and are working together. It made me really happy. And shout out to Our Native Daughters. I mean, I went to school with Amethyst Kia.
Wow.
Like I feel like we went to high school, and I know we went to college together, but I think we were in high school and college at the same time. And she also one of the best people. So it's dope when the worlds start to collide in that way. Allison is a beast. So the two of you together is just some whole other level. Like,
it's humbling for me.
Angel singing goodness. It's gonna be. I can't wait for y'all to hear the track. Word. Yeah, I'm really excited about that, and really, again, I just feel like it's so important to say like how exciting it is that folks like you, Jake, and folks like Allison, don't think it robbery to really spend some of your time doing work with folks in community, folks that are doing this movement building work and telling the truth about your story, so our people see themselves through your incredible artistry and platforms. I think there's just something really, really beautiful about that. So I'm excited about all my friends getting on the good fit to be at these concerts, COVID safe, and buying this music and buying it directly. Put it on your streaming services while you go to sleep and just let it play all night.
That's it.
all of that, because we want to support our people who are out here supporting us. So
Yeah,
just really grateful
yeah.
to you and Allison for that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's like it's really like, music serves a lot of purposes. Um, but as its effect on community is just that. It's like it has to reflect what's happening in the community and draw people together, and yeah, like it's like the oldest newspaper, right? It's like
You wrote this at a time where George Floyd had been murdered, and like we said earlier, like the cumulative Black death
mm,
that got us to the point of George being murdered and people saying enough, like enough.
that was being televised, right?
Right, it was being televised. Everybody's seen it. We've been seeing it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And people were furious, and so disappointed. So disappointed that people who have claimed power and say they are in power, people who've been appointed to powerful positions, had done so little to stop it, right? But on the flip side of that just devastating and depressing ass reality is that our people did rise. In fact, 2020 has been said by multiple experts that it's likely the largest social movement in US history. I know, because I was working with the Movement for Black Lives, that not only did we show up in every single state in the US, we were in like anywhere between 12 and 20 different countries, having similar conversations with similar conditions, right? Something happened. And not only that would be victory enough in some ways, right? We could claim that as a victory, but also it put regular everyday people in the driver's seat around what should the demands of this time be, right? What is the requirement of our generation? And folks demanded what they deserve, not just what they would concede to, and have been fighting for that. Now, have we won all of that overnight? No. But are those victories inevitable? Absolutely. It's because our people have now been turned on and are not going to settle for anything less than what we deserve, right?
Yeah.
And so in that vein, there's plenty to be hopeful about, but I'm curious and concerned about. Both things are true at the same time, and to pretend like it's a binary where you're one or the other is not real anymore. I hope everybody knows that. But towards sort of that future vision, what would you recommend for other artists, either that are already established that are listening to us, or newer folks to actually getting their artistic expression out there and seen? What words of advice would you give to them, and what do you desire? What do you desire that folks get out of this gift once they receive it?
When I was younger, I wrote music about heartbreak and whatever, about being sad that someone didn't talk to me, or it didn't work out, and I wrote a song about it. And I remember thinking man, there's some really powerful music out there. I wish I could connect with that somehow. And just over time, as I just kept putting my ear to the ground and being aware of what's happening, and allowing my music to kind of be my dear diary, that's just kind of happened naturally. There's an old saying, it's funny, it says you never see an idealist with gray hair. But I'm happy to say that as I've gotten older, I've become more aware, and more eager to convey the truth that I see and that I feel around me. And the things that I feel passionate about, I don't think are controversial. It's can we just be on the same page, and can we support each other? Can we support humanity?
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
Be humans together.
Exactly. Yeah. In the best ways. Can we all just try our best to be good to each other?
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
It's not controversial. So at the end of the day, that's my hope. That's what I want to encourage other people to, upcoming songwriters or whatever. look for ways to do that. That's it. Just look for ways to be the best human you can to the people around you, and to convey that message. Like, we need the hope, we need the destination, and that's all part of the process towards eventually arriving somewhere better than where we are now. That's the journey. You mentioning 2020 just being one of the biggest movements. I can remember watching the news and seeing the protests starting to happen and feeling like having flashbacks to different times along the way, and feeling like I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't have a lot of expectation. People tend to move on really quickly from things. And then a couple weeks went by, and then all of a sudden, I'm watching the news, and again, I had this conversation with a friend of mine. Like it's great. I'm grateful that people are taking action, but the problem is, at the end of the day, in the United States of America, at least, Caucasians are in power, basically, right? That's where the power is. So nothing's going to change. There's not gonna be a power shift unless people are willing to release some of that power, right? It's not gonna level out. And then all of a sudden, we went to a march in Montreal, right? And it's just and I'm turning on the news, and it's just a ton of Caucasian and
it's mad white
Asian
people.
and and that's the first moment that I felt oh my God. And then you see protests in Sweden, all over the globe. And that's the moment that was the moment that really that caught my attention in a strong way. Because there's always been people from different cultural backgrounds fighting together, but not at this level. And if you look at the time in the 60s, when the movements are really getting really strong, the fight for civil rights, you look at a photograph, a black and white photograph, and it's really clear there's a lot of black faces, but today it's it's an enormous conglomerate of just human beings. And I love that at least we've come there. That's a big reason to be hopeful. That we're at least here. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's the thing they don't teach us, right? Is that actually, even if we talk about the abolition of the enslavement of African descended people, which is usually as far back as most of us get in history, that even the abolitionist movement was though clearly majority Black people, was a multiracial movement that included indigenous people who were from here for real, and then well-meaning, usually sometimes religious white people who thought that it was an abomination to enslave people. And the Black people who themselves were either enslaved or free, because not all Black people were always enslaved. And so, it was true then, but might have been might have felt this big in the context of what was going on. 50s right. and 60s, same, right? Definitely Black people putting their lives on the line. But, I think about Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, right? The 3 civil rights workers that were murdered in Mississippi for registering Black people to vote. 2 of them were white people, right? And that's just one example. There were a lot of white people that got killed or hurt.
For sure.
So, and as the Black Panther Party was happening, right? So was the American Indian movement. Those folks knew each other, the Weather Underground, just all the sort of white people organizing white people work that was happening that nobody gets taught about. And I think why it's so important to not lose what you said, Jake, is that could happen again with what we did in 2020, right? The story could become, oh, those Black Lives Matter activists or the movement for Black Lives was out there, but it was still the fringe. No, we weren't.
Right.
No, we weren't. we were in fact there, but so was a whole millions of other regular ass people who had never been to a meeting, who, you know, didn't know, you know, anything about theory and practice and tactics and strategy. They didn't care about that. No one organization can claim what happened in 2020, right?
Absolutely.
And that's not only was that true in 2020, all of those people that said enough is enough, regardless of what they're doing literally this second as we're watching this, are all people that believe in bending the moral arc of the universe towards some kind of justice. You know, we're clearly the majority. And so, you know, I think when January 6th and stuff like that happens, it's like, of course, this is like the last gasp to consolidate their wealth and power, but they're losing and we're winning. And, you know, on the days where I feel the most hopeless, which isn't often because I try to keep it from getting there in the first place. But But when I get close and I'm like, man, I could just like sit in my house on my front porch and mind my business. When those days creep up, what gives me hope is like how many of us, even the people that thought they already knew it all, including myself, how many of us were transformed through the process of what it meant to be in an all hands on deck moment with so many other people who we never would have expected to ever have a relationship with.
For me, like that stems back to like Susan B. Anthony, Frederick Douglass, right? Like that story, that narrative, like, and that voice has continued and continued and continued, and just like it's just gotten bigger and louder, you know, and the representation's there. It's a really exciting time right now, in that regard. Yeah, and as things often are, right? It's like it's the whole the voice has gotten that much more powerful, and like the resistance is
yeah, that's right. The opposition has to. Yeah,
exactly. So like we have to be encouraged. We have to rise up. For me, I'm gonna keep moving forward with you know what I understand to be true, and to continue presenting the best voice that I can to bend that arc. You know, I mean, I'm on stages all over the world, and that's something I convey at every concert, at every show. It's like you know, like Born Like Me is a way of like humanizing each other, right? It's a way of like it's a way of like in some ways like ignoring the superficial differences and just saying like we're all the same people, right? So we have to stand up for each other, and that's what we're gonna keep doing. And this song, I hope that it's a part of that movement in some way, and that people connect to it and feel that call, and you know, organizations like the Highlander Center, like I hope that it brings a lot of attention to what you guys are doing, because your work is imperative. We would, you know, like as a nation, you know, we'd be lost. We'd be lost without your work. It's been so important for such a long time, and its importance only grows. So I hope that people, you know, pick up the music, share it, and understand that, like, you know, all these proceeds are all going to benefit the hard work that the Highlander Center is doing, and ultimately to uplift humanity in its best ways.
Yeah, I think there's gonna come a day where we're old and retired, and hopefully not fighting anymore, where, you know, my kid is gonna come running in, or her kids are gonna come running in and say, oh man, like I just learned about like Pete Seeger and Miles Horton and Jake Clemons and Ash-Lee Henderson and the history of folk music and rock music and people's music of all genres in relationship to this incredible life-saving work. So all that said, Jake, I love you. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Highlander, so grateful. And it has been fantastic to get to spend a little bit of time getting to kick it with you. And I'm so excited for Black August to come, so everybody gets to hear this incredible music that you have made. So thank you.
That we have made. Thank you. Excited to share it very, very much. Cheers. Thank you so much.